Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Rafaela and today's title is Rot and Roots. I think that we are all familiar with the phrase the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But what if it doesn't fall far from the tree because the tree itself is struggling? Its roots tangled in pain, in silence or generational hurt. For most of my life, I took the phrase that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree as a simple truth. It was a nod to genetics, to resemblance, to the small ways that I mirrored the people that came before me. I used to smile when someone told me that I reminded them of my parents. It felt like pride and it was proof that I belonged to something. But lately, I've started to see the phrase a little bit differently. Because what if the tree wasn't healthy to begin with? What if what we call family traits are just sometimes inherited wounds? Sometimes the rot starts in the roots and we spend years trying to fix the fruits, polishing what the world can see without ever daring to look at what's buried underneath. There's a kind of exhaustion that comes from trying to outgrow the very soil you were once raised in. You can spend your whole life tending to the symptoms, your temper, your trust issues, your need for validation, thinking that if you prune enough, you'll finally bloom differently. But pruning doesn't cure rot, it just makes it quieter. And I've realized so much of what we call self-improvement is really just damage control for something that didn't begin with us. We inherit patterns like heirlooms, how we love, how we grieve, and how we hide. And sometimes we spend decades sanding down splinters of someone else's pain, trying to make it fit into our own hands. It's hard to admit that some of the things I thought were my flaws weren't entirely mine. The overthinking, the instinct to apologize before I've done something wrong, or the fear of being too much or not enough. These are echoes of someone else's silence, someone else's survival tactics, and they run deep, older than memory, passed down like invisible threads to the DNA of behavior. And even when you see them for what they are, even when you know the story behind them, it doesn't mean that they disappear, because recognition is only the beginning of it. Once you see where the rot begins, you can't unsee it. It changes how you look at everything, your family, your choices, even your kindness. And you start to notice how many people are trying to fix the fruit, covering up the bitterness with sweetness, painting over bruises, and pretending that the harvest is still good. But healing, I've learned, doesn't come from pretending that the tree is fine. Healing comes from being brave enough to dig, to get your hands dirty in the soil of your past, and to face the uncomfortable truth that grows there, the neglect, the anger, and the love that came with conditions. And that kind of work isn't glamorous. It's lonely, messy, and often misunderstood. People might tell you to just move on, as if digging through generations of silence is a choice that you make lightly. But if you don't address the roots, the rot doesn't stay contained, it spreads. And it shows up in the way you speak of yourself, the relationships you choose, and the limits you place on your own joy. It seeps into places you thought were safe. So yes, it is easier to polish the apple, to convince yourself that surface level change is enough. But deep down, you know that it isn't. Still, I don't think the story has to end in decay. Maybe the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but maybe it doesn't have to stay there either. Maybe it can roll a little, find new soil, take roots again in a place where the ground is kinder. Maybe healing isn't about denying where we came from, but about choosing what grows next. Because even if the rot begins in the roots, renewal begins there too, in the willingness to confront what poisoned us, and to plant something better in its place. And that's what I am learning to do. To stop blaming the fruit, to stop pretending that the tree was perfect, and to start digging with honesty, patience, and care. I'm learning that it's okay to acknowledge that not everything I carry is mine, but that it is my responsibility now to cleanse the soil, to nurture what's left, and to grow differently. Maybe the apple doesn't fall far, but it can still find courage to take seed somewhere else. And maybe that's what breaking cycles really means. Not cutting down the tree, but teaching it and yourself how to grow again. Now, if you're watching this, maybe you felt the weight of inherited patterns, the subtle ways the past lingers in your choices. But what matters now isn't blame or regret, is action. You have the power to dig deep, to tend to your own soil, and to plant new roots where they can thrive. Every conscious choice, every small act of self-awareness is a seed of change. The apple may not fall far from the tree, but you can still grow beyond it with patience, courage, and care. And you can nurture a life that reflects the person you choose to become. Not what you were handed, but what you are willing to grow into. Healing doesn't mean rejecting where you came from. It means choosing what continues. You have the power to replant yourself in healthier soil, to nurture your new roots that are built on compassion, truth, and boundaries. It's slow work, yes, it's the kind that no one applauds in real time. But every act of awareness, whether it's small or big, every moment you respond differently, every time you choose love over repetition, that's how the soil changes, and that's how a new tree begins. So don't be afraid to dig deep. Don't fear what you'll find in the roots. What's buried there isn't just pain, but it's also potential. The same root that once held you down can teach you how to stand taller, stronger, and freer from the generations before you. The apple may not fall far from the tree, but you have the choice to grow beyond it. And that choice, that courage to rewrite what you've inherited, is the beginning of everything new. So I hope that you enjoyed today's journal entry, and as always, I wish that you have a lovely day, that you take care of yourself, and let me know what you think about today's reading. Are you trying to break out of any generational patterns, any generational trauma? So if you're comfortable to share that, do let me know behind. I always read your comments, and I always love to connect with you guys. See you next time. Bye bye.